And joining us now is Steven Harper, who's a professor at Northwestern University and a regular contributor to The American Lawyer. He's the author of several books, including The Lawyer Bubble, A Profession in Crisis, and he blogs at The Belly of the Beast, and he has an article at Common Dreams. Trump and his allies are a clear and present danger to American democracy. Welcome to Background Briefing, Steven Harper.
Thank you, Ian. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Well, thanks for joining us, Steven. And the hearings yesterday where they made it clear how Trump operates like a mafia boss. He sends out his consigliere, Rudy Giuliani, to make outrageous demands without offering any evidence and basically say to Republican legislators, just go along with the boss, go along with the Godfather. Yep. Evidence doesn't matter. And then if that doesn't work, then he sicks his goons onto them and he outs people and he publishes their home addresses and has his mob come and harass people. Why is it, though, that so much of what we're hearing, and I'm not being critical because the information and evidence is really powerful and important, and I hope the Justice Department acts on it, but I don't understand why people aren't contextualizing this in terms of this is the operations of a mafia boss, and this is basically a pathway to American fascism.
Yeah, you're exactly correct. A few observers have made that argument or made that analogy, which I think is exactly correct. In fact, I would add one little addendum, which is I don't think he operates as smartly as a mafia boss because he makes a mistake periodically of actually making the call himself, as he did to the Georgia Secretary of State Raffensperger. A capo would never, he would never be so careless as to put his own fingerprints, or if you will, his own voice on something that could be recorded and then played back for posterity over and over again. But you're exactly right, and this has been the Trump playbook from the very beginning. And it's always about, winning, and Trump is all that matters. And if you're not on his team, you're against him. And even if you're on his team for a while, if you turn on him or don't remain loyal, he will turn on you. And it is frightening for students of history, for students of political science who study, how organized crime works. If people who have studied, Weimar Germany in the 30s, this is all of it. It's the same. It's deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say.
And the testimony yesterday from a couple of the election workers, Ruby Freeman in particular, and her daughter, was really heart-wrenching because their lives have been ruined. I mean, they can't go out in public. And in the phone call to Raffensperger that you just mentioned, Stephen, Trump mentioned Ruby Freeman 18 times, calling her a professional vote scammer and hustler. And Rudy Giuliani, when he was trying to shake down Republican legislators to reverse the vote, give it to Trump, he described that Ruby passed to his daughter a vial of cocaine. And when in the hearing yesterday, Adam Schiff asked him, what did you pass? And it turned out it was a ginger mint. I mean, these people are outrageous. They're just destroying people's lives of slander and libeling them. And I understand some people are suing Giuliani. But what about Trump? I mean, when's he going to be pulled over?
Well, that's the question, right? That is the question. And personally, I'm sort of discouraged at what has now become the debate about, should we indict him? Shouldn't we indict him? Maybe we shouldn't even indict him because maybe we can't convict him. The ground keeps shifting, and the narratives, and frankly, I blame much of the media for this because they're allowing these narratives to shift in that way. But if you or I did any of the things, you or I or any of your listeners did any of the things that Trump is accused of doing, and that we now know there is evidence proving that he did. I mean, it's not even a close question. This is his own voice. These are his own people. The people who are testifying are Republicans. We could get into another question of, are they really heroes, having waited a year and a half before we're hearing this stuff? But, any of the rest of us would be facing, disastrous civil exposure from lawsuits, defamation, libel, slander, as you say, as well as very, very, very long prison terms. And I just don't even think it's a close question that you indict the guy. This notion that, we should worry because, we'll be even more polarized. We should worry because, what if you can't win? The Justice Department has a guideline. They have to be virtually 90% certain of being able to win a case before they indict. And they have to, unless they meet that standard, they won't indict in the first place. And if they meet that standard, how can you not indict the guy who, whether he's the president or someone else, who is guilty of the most dangerous crime against the democracy of the United States in the entire history of the country? I don't get the hand wringing over that. To me, it's an easy call, because if you don't do it, then what are you telling America? What are you telling Trump, number one? And then what are you telling America? We're already at a place where, Congress issues subpoenas and people just feel free to just ignore them, or, fight them in courts until they disappear or people forget, or to me, it's not even a close question.
And again, I'm speaking with Steven Harper, who's a professor at Northwestern University and a regular contributor to The American Lawyer. He's the author of several books, including The Lawyer Bubble, A Profession in Crisis, and he blogs at Belly of the Beast, and he has an article at Common Dreams, Trump and His Allies Are a Clear and Present Danger to American Democracy. So obviously they're building a case, the Select Committee, and they walk you through. I mean, the presentations are very skillful, but by spending so much time, making it clear, for example, that all of Trump's top aides told him he'd lost the elections, and he even mentioned it to several people that he acknowledged that he lost the elections. Now, I guess those are important things to put on the record. But what's really going on here is that none of that matters. Trump doesn't care about facts and truth. He is on his own trajectory, which is he's so psychologically wounded by his father, who was a total Nazi, and he said, you got to be a killer, son. You can't ever be a loser. So he can't be a loser. And also, he couldn't give up the presidency because it would expose him to exactly what's happening now, the fact that he's no longer protected by the Office of Legal Counsel, the Justice Department's finding that you can't indict a sitting president. So that's what's going on, isn't it, Stephen?
Correct. Absolutely correct. I think that one reason that the committee is spending as much time as it is, or has, showing the evidence that, look, Trump knew, all of his people knew, his top advisors were telling him, it's a loser, is to help buttress the evidence of intent in terms of the criminal requirements. Now, the fact of the matter is that for some of the potential crimes that he faces, it really is, as you say, it really is extraneous. I can say, gee whiz, I really have this firm belief that I won the Indianapolis 500, or that I won the Olympic gold medal. And then based on that, I tell you, what I want you to do is you guys need to go in and go break into the house of the guy who has the Olympic medal that should be mine, and give it to me, because as we all know, I'm the rightful owner of that medal. Well, that's, the notion that I believe that I won the Olympics is no defense to the crime that I've now committed. And the same is true for Trump. But I do think it does help. I think it helps the public, to the extent that there are any relevant members of the public at this point left to persuade, although some of the polls indicate that it is moving the needle a little bit in terms of some Republicans. 6 out of 10 Americans now believe that he should face criminal charges. So I think there's help there, and I think it is useful to show that this was always a colossal fraud, and it was a colossal fraud from the very beginning. And the Trump's most significant, closest advisors were telling him that it's a colossal fraud. And so, even Rudy Giuliani, according to the testimony of the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, said, we have theories, we just don't have any facts. And so it all really needs to come to a head, and it needs to come to a head that the evidence clearly would take it. Like I say, if it were you or me facing these kinds of problems.
So the question yesterday, of course, came from Adam Schiff, and he recently, in an interview, said that he's more worried about what's happening now. That he said we're in much greater danger now to our democracy than we were on January the 6th because of what Trump and the Republicans have done. In other words, they've sort of learned from their mistakes, and they're going to rig the local, they're going after Secretary of State's offices, after canvassing boards. They're going to basically be in a position where the few decent Republicans like Raffensperger and others who stood up to Trump, who were vilified, and he sicked the goons onto him and gave out their home addresses, those people are gone, and Stop the Steal people are being put in their place. So
that's right.
Isn't that what Judge Ludick was warning about in his testimony?
I think so, and I wrote an entire series on this for Common Dreams. You can go state by state and look at where Trump is endorsing people who are either running strongly or winning for critical offices. There's Christine Caramo in Michigan. There's the guy in Nevada, Jim Marchant. These people were all they all got together at a QAnon conference, to talk about, how are we going to take back the country. And I noticed there was a report recently, I think it was in the Washington Post, it said there are 100 people who are election deniers who have already won their primaries, their Republican primaries. And there's some really important ones coming, some important general elections coming. In Pennsylvania, swing state, Mastriano is the guy. If he wins and becomes governor, he'll appoint the Secretary of State. It's not an elected office there, but that sort of thing is happening all over the country. And I believe Schiff is exactly correct. I have shared his concern for months or even longer, and written about it. That is exactly what's going on, and it's the dismantling of democracy from the inside. If democracy dies in the United States, it will have been an inside job, and that's exactly what's happening.
Well, given what you just said, and I've been saying it for some time, Stephen, what the hell are people going to do about this? What's the opposition, the governing party, which is the Democrats, albeit, they got a pretty tenuous hold on the Senate, but they still are in control of the House and Senate and the White House. What are they doing? What are the people doing? Because you're going to miss it when it's gone. I guarantee you. American people will not like living in a totalitarian state, even though Trump and his MAGA people think it's all about freedom. Well, it's not. At the end of the day, we're going to be enslaved by a thug. This sick man is going to be back in power. And his buddy Putin and all these other crooks around the world will be working with him. And by the way, he is actually still Putin's agent, because Putin's main goal is to weaken America from within. And that's exactly what Trump is doing by dividing and turning Americans against each other. And unfortunately, we're obliging in our polarization. And if you get convinced 80% of Republicans that you won an election that you clearly lost, that makes the president illegitimate and divides the country further. So Putin's laughing all the way to the bank.
Yep. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And the question is, what do you do about it? Well, that's the question, right? And the answer is tough, because it's very hard to get people to care about something that you so take for granted, like American democracy, when they go to fill up their car with gas and it's $6 or $7 a gallon, or their groceries are high, inflation, and they're real problems. I understand that, but compared to the loss of democracy, those are problems that they're going to resolve themselves. We're not going to be living in high inflation forever. We're not going to be living in that sort of situation forever. But I think you hit it exactly on the head. Democracy, you're going to miss it when it's gone, and it's going to be very, very hard. I think it'll take generations to get it back if we lose it. How do you keep from losing it? You just got to figure out a way to get the people who care enough about it, to do something about it, to get out there, to organize people, to vote, however hard the Republicans want to make it to vote. Figure out a way to vote. If you're an independent, or if you're one of the growing numbers of people who were once regarded themselves as Republicans and are now concerned about the loss of democracy, well, vote for a Democrat for the first time in your life. The amazing thing to me is not only that a lot of these Republicans continue to support Trump. Rusty Bowers, the Speaker of the Arizona House, who was under pressure from Trump and Giuliani, he voted for the guy. So did Raffensperger. I mean, all these Republicans who are testifying now to the tactics that Trump tried, pressure tactics that Trump tried to put on them, they all voted for him. And many of them, and I guess, culprit number one, Mitch McConnell, who condemned him in the Senate at the time of the impeachment vote, although declined to vote to convict him, has now said quite openly, of course, if Trump's the Republican candidate, of course I'll vote for him. I mean, how do you deal with that kind of cognitive dissonance? I have no idea. But I think all you can do is you have to assume that it's a highly visible, highly mobilized, highly motivated minority that's trying to take democracy away from a relatively apathetic, lethargic majority. And unfortunately, you and I have both seen throughout history that has happened time and time again. And if we're lethargic this time, it will be at great cost to ourselves and to our future generations.
Well, Steven Harper, I thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Ian. Always a pleasure.
And again, I've been speaking with Steven Harper, who's a professor at Northwestern University, a regular contributor to The American Lawyer, and the author of several books, including The Lawyer Bubble, A Profession in Crisis, and he blogs at The Belly of the Beast, and he has an article at Common Dreams. Trump and his allies are a clear and present danger to American democracy. We're going to take a brief station break. We're back looking into President Biden's call for a federal and state gas tax holiday to lower prices at the pump in order to curb inflation, and a new report that calls for an excess profit tax on